Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How are we? Thank you for tuning in. This is the MCJ Report number 44, I want to say. It's a little bit easy to lose track. Maybe it's number 45, actually. No. MCJ number 45. That's right, we made it. I'd like to welcome everyone to the broadcast, everyone tuned in from Victoria, around Australia. And I also see we have some international guests today from England and also from Sweden. So I'd like to welcome our international audience. Thank you for being here. We are all fighting the same fight. We're all brothers and sisters. So how's everybody going? And I see Tracy there from Perth, Richard, Canberra. How are we? Yes, Daniel, we will be announcing the Canberra meetup. That will be taking place on Sunday. So please stay tuned on Telegram and we'll certainly let you know. Anyway, let me know where you're tuned in from. Why don't you go ahead and put that in the comments there, because we have beyond a Victorian audience. Of course, myself, I'm from Victoria, born and raised. And we have Helen there from Tasmania. Welcome to the broadcast. It's great to see you guys. And I think that you all know a bit of the topics that we'll be talking about today. And Mary there from Ireland, how you doing? I would love to head over to that region of the world. You know, I've never been. And I would love to go one day. I would absolutely love to go without, of course, a COVID passport, right? Without a vaccine passport. We need to get rid of the concept of that, of course, so we can all engage in our God-given right to travel. That's right. So Margaret, Brad, Denise there from Bendigo. It's so nice to see you. And I'm really, really happy that you're here. I mean, we've got great news. I'm pretty excited. This is an exciting time that we're living through. Ladies and gentlemen, that's right. It is up to we the people to take our country back, of course, to take our country back from the self-serving politicians and their corporate masters that for far too long now have enacted policy to serve in their interests in front of the interests of the people. Well, what I dare say we're experiencing here in Australia is a political awakening unlike one we've ever seen before. More and more Australians are getting involved in public affairs and have developed an interest in politics. And if it was the corona situation that prompted us to get into action and to take our eyes off the television, off sports, and to get involved, then maybe it had to happen. Anyway, I hope that you can feel the energy shifting, because I can. So let's just get straight to it, shall we? Well, as you guys know, we have launched our political party. That's right. Reignite Democracy Australia is now a political party. It is an exciting time and we are just getting started. Now, the good news is that we surpassed our 500 members. So we will, of course, be submitting our application to the Australian Electoral Commission. I'd like to thank everybody who has become a member. That's right. We are going to do this together. It's not just me, Monica, or Miles, Esther, or Sherelle, our team in the executive committee. It is each and every one of you. We all have a role to play in this fight, and we're all going to roll our sleeves up and we're going to get in there together. That's right. So this was the natural progression for us. I think we went about as far as we could as an advocacy group, and now we've taken the next step. And the goal is to beat them at their own game. That's right, guys. So this had to be done quite quickly. Of course, we have the federal election looming. So we needed to get this done and to get the RDA Party website live. And it's rdaparty.com.au. You can go there and become a member if you'd like. We'd appreciate it greatly. We needed to get this done quickly because we're running out of time, and the federal election could be sooner than later. Now, you can expect to see on the website coming very soon the Constitution and the policy schedule. Now, if you watch the MCJ Report often, you may have an idea of what some of those policies may be. I dare say we've spoken about policies on the MCJ Report since the start of the show. So please stay tuned. We are working on it, and it will come very, very soon. Now, some people have asked a few questions about the party. One of the questions I see asked over and over again is, what are my obligations as a member? Do I have to do anything? The simple answer to that is no. Becoming a member of a political party, you have the voting rights, but you are not bound to be anywhere or to do anything or to volunteer at a certain time. It is a simple requirement of the Australian Electoral Commission to have a certain amount of members in order for the party to be functional. So rest assured, it's not as if you become a member and all of a sudden we'll be calling you up and telling you to go and do letterbox drops. Although if you would like to volunteer, then of course we would be most appreciative of that. And it's as simple as that, guys. So as you can see, the little image right there, RDA Party, $40 per year for membership. If you would like to sign up as a member, you can head on over to rdaparty.com.au. Now, I'm just going to show you the website that we have up and running right now, and it will be expanded upon really soon. So as you can see, the branding, Reignite Democracy Australia, the branding that you're all familiar with already. You can become a party member. We got here our mission. Our mission is to empower and unite Australians in actively maintaining our individual and collective liberty. Our only chance of succeeding in this mission is with you by our side. Okay, so there you go. This is it. The gloves are off, and the time is now, ladies and gentlemen. And you know what? We may only have one shot to get this right, so we're going to do our absolute best. Anyway, this is the big announcement for tonight's show. Let's get started with the news and other updates. Okay, so this weekend is the Worldwide Rally for Freedom, taking place in many countries all over the world. And it is, of course, taking place here in Australia in all the capital cities. Now, Monica and myself will be heading to Sydney to speak. That's right. So if you're in Sydney, you can come on down to the rally. It will be at Hyde Park at 12 noon. Okay, so that's a Worldwide Rally for Freedom. We're expecting thousands of people to show up. I'm really excited to be heading to Sydney. It is I haven't been to Sydney for a long time, so I can't wait to go. And I'd just like to also thank the organisers of the rally up in Sydney. They've done a great job promoting the event and making promotional material. And there's one piece of promotional material they made for me, so that is very humbling, and I'd just like to say thank you. If you're going to be in Melbourne, the event will be taking place, of course, on Saturday, 12 midday at Batman Park. So if you're in Melbourne, go on, head down. I'm sure it will be a great event. All right, so let's just get straight into it, shall we, folks? All right, Fiona Patten. Who here knows Fiona Patten? Fiona Patten from the Reason Party that holds a seat in the Legislative Council here in Victoria. We've uncovered some shenanigans coming from Fiona Patten's team. That's right, coming from her office, seemingly as an attempt to drive traffic to her website. Now, I'm going to show you what I'm talking about right here. Get a load of this. Fiona Patten and her Reason Party violate domain name regulations to gain web traffic. Now, this is coming from reignitedemocracyaustralia.com.au. go ahead and sign up, put your email address in at mcjreport.com, and I will send you this article. I'm going to read to you here. It says, where do you think these domains lead? reignitedemocracy.com.au, davidlimbrick.com.au, and stuartgrimley.com.au. You'd think they would lead to their respective namesakes and legal entities, right? Right? Wrong. They appear to have been commanded by Fiona Paddon's Reason Party, since that's where you'll find yourself at one of these domains. All right, now it's important to point out that David Limbrick and Stuart Grimley, these links have been taken down. But if you go to your browser and type in reignitedemocracyaustralia.com.au, it takes you to Fiona Paddon's party, the Reason Party. Okay, so I'm going to show you in the next page. Have a look at this. Click on the link, reignitedemocracy.com.au, and it takes you to this page right here, the Reason Party page. So why would this be? Surely this is a violation of intellectual property. At least you would think so. Okay, I'm not saying that for sure, but Reignite Democracy Australia, of course, is intellectual property of RDA. So to use the name to direct traffic to an alternate political party seems underhanded and cheap. Is that fair enough? Okay, it goes on to say here, the listed registrant for the above domain names is Jorian Gardner, which online searches reveal is a taxpayer-funded parliamentary staffer of Fiona Paddon. The article goes on to say, not only does this demonstrate the underhanded tactics the Reason Party are using to garner support, but is also in direct violation of the AUDA, that is the Australian Domain Administration regulations, that stipulate a domain name must be a, quote, an exact match, abbreviation or acronym of the registrant's name or trademark, or otherwise closely and substantially connected with the registrant. Okay, which it's not. Okay, so this is a matter that we're going to be following up on, but nonetheless a very sneaky, underhanded tactic, and one that we don't want to see taking place here in Australia. I think that is most definitely fair to say. All right, moving forward here. All right, now everybody remembers the brave Canadian pastor. Remember the scenes of the police entering his church along with an authorized officer. The famous words now, get out, get out, get out. The world, of course, commended this brave pastor for standing up for his rights and not allowing that particular team to work their way into his church. And of course, that video went viral and went all around the world. He has unfortunately been arrested, and it looks like things could be very grim for this brave pastor. Now, I'm going to remind you of the original footage when he ejected the police and the authorized officers out of his church.
Please get out. Get out of this property. Immediately get out. Get out of this property immediately. Out. I don't want to hear anything. Out of this property immediately. I don't want to hear a word. Out. Out. Out of this property immediately until you come back with a warrant. Out. 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 Out of this property. Immediately out. Immediately go out and don't come back. I don't want to talk to you. Not a word. Out of this property. Immediately out. I don't care what you have to say. Out. Out. Out of this property, you Nazis. Out. Out. Gestapo is not allowed here. Immediately, Gestapo is not allowed. Out. Do you understand English? Get out of this property. Go. So go. Go. And don't come back without a warrant. Out, Nazi. Out. Out. You understand? Nazis are not welcome here. Out. And don't come back without a warrant. Do not come back without a warrant. You understand that? You're not welcome here. Nazis are not welcome here. Gestapo is not welcome here. Do not come back, you Nazi psychopaths. Unbelievable, sick, evil people. Intimidating people in a church during the Passover. You Gestapo, Nazi, communists, fascists. Don't you dare coming back here.
All right, so those scenes making their way all around the world. Now I'm going to read to you an article here. This was just from a couple of days ago regarding this particular pastor, the Canadian pastor originally from Poland. Canadian pastor arrested in highway takedown after holding service defying lockdowns. During his arrest, Pawlowski screamed multiple times to police to, quote, do it the Nazi style, with police then proceeding to drag him across the road to the police car. Very traumatizing scenes. It goes on to say, Calgary, Alberta, May 10th, 2021, a Canadian pastor was arrested in dramatic fashion during a highway takedown on his way home after holding a Saturday service in defiance of COVID-19 health rules. The pastor had earlier made headlines for calling police and health inspectors coming to his church for 2 unannounced health visits, Gestapo Nazis. Members of the Calgary Police Service stopped Pastor Artur Pawlowski in the cave of Adullam Church and his brother Dawid Pawlowski. They arrested and charged the pair with organizing an illegal in-person gathering. Video of the arrest, which has been viewed thousands of times and has gone viral, shows multiple police cars surrounding the car he was in with his brother. I'm going to show you the footage of that particular arrest right now. Be warned, it is disturbing.
If you're not recording, it's backwards. Right now, one more. You're nuts. You're nuts. You're Gestapo psychopaths. Gestapo psychopaths you are. Gestapo.
What's your name, officer?
Do it the Nazi style. Do it the Nazi style. You're good Gestapo, do it the Nazi style. Do it the Nazi style. Do it the Nazi style! Do it, the taser me, kill me! Do it the Nazi style.
Shame on you guys. This is not communist China. Don't you guys have family and kids? Whatever happened to Canada? God keep our land glorious and free. What are they gonna do when they come for your kids? Shame on you guys. You call yourselves Canadians? Man, where's your oath? Where's your honor? Where's your dignity? You guys aren't Canadian.
So very disturbing scenes there in a long list of disturbing scenes since the inception of this COVID situation. So that was the pastor and his brother showing courage and strength, of course, forcing the police to carry them away, not submitting and not walking. I think that their strength and fighting spirit is something to be admired. Now I'm going to read to you a little bit about the pastor here. Pawlowski fled communist Poland and recently told LifeSite News that he continued police presence at his church. That the continued police presence at his church gives him bad memories of growing up behind the Iron Curtain. He is a well-known street preacher in Calgary and is renowned for feeding the homeless. He has been running Calgary-based street church ministries for over 20 years and has been a vocal opponent to coronavirus lockdowns. It was reported in late April that Pawlowski could be facing fines and jail time after being served with a warrant should he not allow officials to inspect the church. In response to Pawlowski's arrest, CPS, which is the police, issued a statement confirming that Artur Pawlowski and David Pawlowski have both been arrested and charged with organizing an illegal in-person gathering, including requesting, inciting, or inviting others to attend an illegal public gathering, promoting and attending an illegal public gathering. The two men are brothers, and they were arrested for violating the quote court order obtained by Alberta Health Services in relation to mandatory compliance of public health orders for gatherings. Okay, so very disturbing scenes there, and of course we wish the pastor and his brother the best of luck, and I think we can all gain inspiration from human courage when we see it. Okay, moving forward here, Dr. Mark Hobart. So I'm very happy to announce that I conducted an interview with the Melbourne-based Dr. Mark Hobart. He graduated from Melbourne University in 1981 and has been a general practitioner ever since. I have a tremendous amount of respect for this man. He's one of the few medical professionals here in Australia that has been outspoken since the inception of the corona situation. I'm going to show you some examples here. Let me just open up my browser. Okay, so Melbourne doctors urge officials to consider alternative COVID remedies. Dr. Mark Hobart has been outspoken on that front right there. Melbourne GP treating aged care residents warn Victoria government basing lockdown on, quote, irrational data. Okay, more great outspoken work by Mark Hobart. Just moving over to Sky News, Melbourne GP says ivermectin treatment is very effective. So he's gone against the grain. He's gone against the narrative of the government to uphold what he considers to be the duty of care that he must serve to the public, to the Australian public. And he was also a co-signatory back last year when hundreds of doctors wrote a letter calling for the end of the lockdown, which was, of course, ignored by Daniel Andrews and Brett Sutton and everybody else in the government. So Mark has recently authored another letter, this time to the Chief Health Officer, Brett Sutton. He hand-delivered the letter, he sent it in via mail, and he sent an email, but unfortunately he received no response. I'm not sure why he didn't receive a response. Maybe Brett Sutton ignored him, or maybe Brett Sutton simply didn't see the letter. I'm not too sure. That is just conjecture at this stage. The letter was specifically in relation to Mark's personal experiences and a study that he uncovered in relation to coronavirus antibody positive elderly people developing severe side effects after taking the COVID injection, the COVID-19 vaccine. Now I'm going to show you the letter that he wrote right here. So as you can see, this is to Professor Brett Sutton. And if you'd like to download a letter, which I urge you, download the letter, I urge you to do so. This is relevant not just to people in Australia, but all around the world. This is important information. And Dr. Mark Hobart most definitely has his heart in the right place. Okay, the link is in the description. It says here, Dear Professor Sutton, this is an urgent and important public health matter. All patients in nursing homes in Victoria must be tested for COVID antibodies prior to getting any COVID vaccine. Patients should not receive the vaccine if they are antibody positive. These are the words of Mark Hobart. He says here, this urgent recommendation is based on my unique and extensive experience as a GP treating COVID-19 positive patients in nursing homes in Melbourne and is also supported by the latest literature. My urgent recommendation is also supported by some leading Australian and international immunologists and specialists. Okay, and he references a study here to corroborate the claims that Mark is making. He goes on to say here, this trial, now this is referring to a publication from MDPI, which is the Multidisciplinary Digital Publishing Institute. Okay, so this is not just some airy-fairy institute that fell out of the sky and just landed on our laps. It says here, this trial found that if you vaccinate people who have previously had COVID-19 illness, there is up to 112% increase of requiring hospitalization due to severe adverse reactions. This was especially so with the AstraZeneca vaccine compared with Pfizer, which was less risky in this study. Okay, he also went on to ask the Chief Health Officer for a reply, and that if he would not receive one, the letter would need to go public. So that's what we're doing. The letter is now public. Now, once again, the link's in the description. You can download the letter. I was fortunate enough to engage in an interview with Dr. Mark Hobart. It's all done, and it will air on the MCJ Report, 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time tomorrow on Thursday. That's right. So make sure that you tune in and you will gain a first-hand experience listening to Mark's stories in relation to this particular concern and what he has gone through. Okay, now here is the study right here. So if you'd like a copy of it, go to mcjreport.com, put your email address in on the homepage, and I'll send it out to you. So this is coming from MDPI. I'm just going to read to you a little bit here. MDPI, or Multidisciplinary Digital Publishing Institute, is a publisher of open access scientific journals. Founded by Shu Kun Lin as a chemical sample archive, it has established over 200 broad scope journals. MDPI is the largest open access publisher in the world and is the 5th largest publisher overall in terms of journal paper outlet. Okay, founded in 1996 in Switzerland. Okay, so here we go here. Open science for more than 25 years. MDPI is a pioneer in scholarly open access publishing and has supported academic communities since 96. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, please go and sign up and I'll send you the information, mcjreport.com. Mark Hobart, Dr. Mark Hobart, I thank you for being forthright in bringing this issue to public attention, and I know that Australians appreciate it and also people from all around the world. Once again, tomorrow night, 8 p.m, right here on the MCJ Report, that's Australian Eastern Standard Time. You can tune in and we will go through the interview in further detail. All right, moving on forward to some CCP news and updates. That's right, the Chinese Communist Party, via their state-run media outlet, which is nothing more than a mouthpiece for the Chinese Communist Party, has threatened to strike Australia with long-range missiles. That's right. So, of course, we've seen the attack on our industry since we called for an investigation into the origins of COVID. We've seen increased belligerence by the Chinese Communist Party in the South China Sea and around Taiwan, the Taiwan Strait. Of course, we've seen the patrols with China and Indonesia in our immediate region, okay? The drums of war seem to be playing, ladies and gentlemen. And now we have, clear as day, a threat to strike Australia with long-range missiles. That's right. So I'm going to read to you a little bit here from the article. This was from 7 News. China's media mouthpiece threatens long-range missile strikes on Australian soil. Okay, China's media mouthpiece has issued an ominous warning amid deteriorating relationships with Australia. State-run outlet The Global Times, which is a mouthpiece for the Chinese government, okay, it's not an independent news source. The media in China is not real media, it is simply the messaging of the government. And unfortunately, our media in Australia is starting to resemble something similar. So it says here, the Global Times on Saturday published an editorial from its editor-in-chief, Hu Jian, that said China needs to make a plan to deter extreme forces of Australia. All right, so I'm going to show you the article here. This is from Global Times. China needs to make a plan to deter extreme forces of Australia. So what's written in the Global Times, you can take as direct messaging from the Chinese government. I'm going to read to you a little bit here. It says here, this is coming from the CCP. Given that Australian hawks keep hyping or hinting that Australia will assist the US military and participate in war once a military conflict breaks out in the Taiwan Straits, okay, because China has made no secret about their intentions to invade Taiwan. That's the reference there. And it goes on to say, and the Australian media outlets have been actively promoting this sentiment. I suggest China make a plan to impose retaliatory punishment against Australia once it militarily interferes in the cross-straits situation. The plan should include long-range strikes on the military facilities and relevant key facilities on Australian soil. Okay, so a threat to strike Australian soil. It doesn't get more clear than that. It says, if it really sends troops to China's offshore areas and combats against the PLA, that's the People's Liberation Army, that are not actually liberating anyone. Just to point that out. In addition to making the plan, China should also reveal this plan through non-official channels to deter the extreme forces of Australia. So that's what they're calling us now, extreme, like we're some group of extremists, and prevent them from taking the risk and committing irresponsible actions. Okay, So you've got the Chinese government accusing us of irresponsible actions, yet you see their belligerence in the South China Sea, the invasion of the exclusive economic zone of the Philippines, the incessant entering of Japanese airspace, and we're the ones that are acting in an irresponsible way. You got to love the language they use, accusing us of what they themselves are guilty of, just like any good authoritarian regime. Says here, China loves peace. Yeah, I mean, China loves peace, right? Do you think the people of East Turkestan or Tibet or Hong Kong would echo that statement that China loves peace and will not take the initiative to pick a fight with faraway Australia? But Australian hawks must be clear-minded. If they are bold enough to coordinate with the US to militarily interfere in the Taiwan question and send troops to the Taiwan Straits to wage war with the PLA, they must know what disasters they would cause to their country. Big time threat. China has a strong production capability, including producing additional long-range missiles, probably intellectual property that they stole from the United States, probably. China has a strong production capability, including producing additional long-range missiles with conventional warheads that target military objectives in Australia when the situation becomes highly tense. All right, so no jokes about it, just plain and clear threats. China has threatened military action on us before, by the way. Of course, it was earlier this year that the Chinese Communist Party passed a new law, and when I say passed, I don't mean that in a democratic way. Laws are passed unilaterally from the top down in China, essentially granting the Coast Guard the authority to fire on ships in, quote, Chinese sovereign waters. Now, what China considers to be its sovereign waters are at odds with the international community. Of course, China laying claim to the South China Sea and areas around Japan and Taiwan, but I'm sure those areas will expand. We've yet to see China come good on that threat to open fire, probably because they don't want a conflict with the United States, but it's important to point out that the Chinese Communist Party is most definitely beating the drums of war. Now, China threatening Australia is not a new thing. Okay, we also know the other day that China and Indonesia were holding joint naval exercises near Jakarta, which is very concerning. Of course, we see Indonesia engaging in COVID-19 vaccine diplomacy with China, the Belt and Road Initiative with China. We've been sending hundreds of millions of dollars to Indonesia for years now. We've trained their military. They have a big military in Indonesia, nearly 400,000 military personnel. And now exactly what we didn't want to happen is happening. Indonesia seems to be teaming up with China militarily, and it's happening right in our immediate region. Look at the map here. Here's Australia, here's Indonesia, there's Jakarta, and this is supposedly where the naval exercises are taking place. What could possibly go wrong? China controls the port of Darwin. We must take back the port of Darwin. China occupying this space poses a national security threat when you think about their military activity in the region, and I'm sure at one stage or another China would like to use the port of Darwin as a military outpost. We also know that China has major strategic interests along the coast of Western Australia, including but not limited to mining and airstrips. That's right. So the time has come, ladies and gentlemen, that we need to call out this behavior. Now, unfortunately, we really can't blame this on China. The writing has been on the wall for a long time. We know that the Chinese communist regime is an imperialist and expansionist regime that would very much like to spread their commercial operations and cultural influence and system of governance all over the world. It was a succession of Australian governments that allowed our economy to become so interconnected with China, and for our industries, our export industries to become so dependent on the Chinese consumer market, that we've now found ourselves in a vulnerable position. Okay, so this is why we're in desperate need of new people to working within the walls of our parliament so we can diversify our economy. If you look at the state of the Australian economy today, it has been completely deindustrialized. We have lost our economic complexity. We used to be a great manufacturing nation. Now the diversity of our manufacturing and what we produce in Australia resembles that of a third world country. In fact, there's many third world countries that have a much more diverse and complex economy than what we do in Australia. It's a huge issue, and this is one of the big reasons why we've started our own political party. So rdaparty.com.au, you can go and sign up and become a member. And believe me, this is going to be a big issue that we will be talking about in the party, which of course is national security. security for our exports, our strategic manufacturing, and so forth, because unfortunately, a succession of Australian governments that have put their careers in front of the interest of the people have put us in a compromised position. All right, so as you can see here, Chinese Communist Party PLA activity, Chinese Navy activity around there, and it's right in our immediate region, right on our doorstep. China sending a message to Australia: look at our capability. We are in striking distance. If need be, we will fire long-range missiles at your country. Now, it's also important to point out that China has commercial and expansionist interests all around this region right here, all the way to Papua New Guinea. There's Daru right there, where China is planning a multi-billion-dollar super city just a short distance from the tip of Cape York in Queensland. We know that China has all types of interests along the coastline. They were able to secure a very sizable portion of Keswick Island off in Queensland, thanks to the Queensland government in conjunction with, I would say, the Foreign Investment Review Board. And when we look to the Pacific Ocean and we look around the Coral Sea, we know that China has many strategic interests all over the place, from New Caledonia, Vanuatu, Solomon Islands, Fiji, Tonga, all over the place. China is sinking their Chinese Communist Party ambitions. They're sinking their teeth in. Okay, our backs are up against the wall right now. We hope for a strong USA. A lot of us were not sure if we would see that under Biden, or whether or not Biden would show resistance against China. Now, in my opinion, Biden is really more of a CEO, a spokesman for the United States, because it seems that America has been sending patrols around the region and is taking measures to counter China's activity in the region. So we hope that that continues, and we hope that it expands. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. Now, China has warned Australia many times in the past and has postured over us and tried to intimidate us. So here's an article from 2016. China warns Australia over the South China Sea dispute. You better not get involved, Australia. It won't end well for you. Chinese media threatens evil Australia's warships in South China Sea. Okay, so that was from last year. Evil warships. Look at what they label us, evil. Okay, whereas you look to China, you see concentration camps, you see prisoners of conscience, crimes against humanity, crimes being carried out on an industrial scale, torture, disappearances, brainwashing, human organ harvesting, and the worst crimes you could possibly imagine. Yet they have the audacity to call us evil. Again, China makes extraordinary threat to Australia over Hong Kong, and the list goes on and on and on. All right, so that is that wraps up the CCP segment of the show. What are your thoughts? Put your comments in the put your comments in the comment section below, and let me know what you think. Do you think it's a threat, or do you think it's nothing to be worried about? Should we just continue drinking beer and watching the football and watching Married at First Sight and say, hey, someone else is going to sort it out? Or should we get involved? I personally say that we should get involved. That's what we're doing. And that's a simple matter of what must be done. All right, moving forward here. Moving forward to the You Can Say No section of the website, which is in relation to Corona news and updates. Let's get started on that, shall we? All right, why would the United States have funded the controversial Wuhan lab? Now, a lot of you may know that the Wuhan Institute of Virology for years now has received funding from the US government. Okay, not directly from the US government. The US government funds an institution in America that then distributes funds out to various institutions, one of them being the Wuhan lab. So I'm going to read to you a little bit here in relation to this. The US National Institute of Health, NIH, had funded the controversial Wuhan Institute of Virology, which is a level 4 research facility suspected by some of being a possible source for the coronavirus that causes the COVID-19 disease. According to Newsweek, funding for the Wuhan Institute of Virology occurred in 2 phases. The first took place from 2014 to 19 through a $3.7 million project, that's US, for collecting and studying bat coronaviruses. This work was largely led by Dr. Zhengli Shi, known to many as Batwoman, for her years investigating caves in search of new bat viruses. Okay, seems she had a fascination with bat viruses. The second phase began shortly after, with another 3.7 million. Unlike the first, this project appears to have included work on gain on function. Okay, you're going to hear this term a lot, gain on function. Research that investigates how a virus can gain the ability to infect a new type of animal. Okay, now I'm going to show you some references to gain of function. There was a debate held in the American Congress recently between Senator Rand Paul and Dr. Anthony Fauci on whether or not the funding from the USA made it into the research of gain of function, which once again is research that investigates how a virus can gain the ability to infect a new type of animal. Alrighty, now I'm going to show you the back and forth between Rand Paul and Dr. Anthony Fauci in the United States. It's a very interesting exchange, and I'll allow you to make of it what you will. It goes for around 7 minutes long. Something that I just wanted to actually point out is that the $3.7 million here that they reference, not all of that went to the Wuhan lab. Only a portion of it went to it, and the rest went to other places, just to put that detail in perspective. All right, so before I play the clip for you, I will introduce the two contestants. Is that what we call them, contestants? I don't know. Randall Howard Paul, born January 7th, 63, is an American physician and politician serving as the junior United States Senator from Kentucky since 2011. He is the son of former 3-time presidential candidate and 12th-term U.S. Representative of Texas, Ron Paul. All right, so that's Rand Paul right there, who is debating, I suppose, or discussing or arguing with this guy right here, who a lot of you are familiar with, Fauci, born December 24th, 1940, an American physician, scientist, and immunologist who serves as the director of the U.S. National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases and the chief medical advisor to the president. All right, now I'm going to play this clip to you right now. It's in relation to U.S. government funding and whether or not the funding was used for this gain of research investigations. So let me play that for you right now.
Dr. Fauci, we don't know whether...
And I should add, it goes for about 7 minutes.
Dr. Fauci, we don't know whether the pandemic started in a lab in Wuhan or evolved naturally, but we should want to know. 3 million people have died from this pandemic, and that should cause us to explore all possibilities. Instead, government authorities, self-interested in continuing gain-of-function research, say there's nothing to see here. Gain-of-function research, as you know, is juicing up naturally occurring animal viruses to infect humans. To arrive at the truth, the U.S. government should admit that the Wuhan Virology Institute was experimenting to enhance the coronavirus's ability to infect humans. Juicing up superviruses is not new. Scientists in the U.S. have long known how to mutate animal viruses to infect humans. For years, Dr. Ralph Barrick, a virologist in the U.S., has been collaborating with Dr. Shi Zhengli of the Wuhan Virology Institute, sharing his discoveries about how to create superviruses. This gain-of-function research has been funded by the NIH. The collaboration between the U.S. and the Wuhan Virology Institute continues. Doctors Barrick and Shi worked together to insert bat virus spike protein into the backbone of the deadly SARS virus, and then use this man-made supervirus to infect human airway cells. Think about that for a moment. The SARS virus had a 15% mortality. We're fighting a pandemic that has about a 1% mortality. Can you imagine if a SARS virus that's been juiced up and had viral proteins added to it, to the spike protein, if that were released accidentally? Dr. Fauci, do you still support funding of the NIH funding of the lab in Wuhan?
Senator Paul, with all due respect, you are entirely and completely incorrect that the NIH has not ever and does not now fund gain-of-function research in the Wuhan Institute
Do they fund
of
Dr.
Virology.
Barrick?
We do not fund.
Do you fund Dr. Barrick's gain-of-function research?
Dr. Barrett does not doing gain-of-function research, and if it is, it's according to the guidelines, and it is being conducted in North Carolina, not
You don't think
in
inserting
China.
a bat virus spike protein that he got from the Wuhan Institute into the SARS virus is gain of function?
That is
You would be
not-
in the minority because at least 200 scientists have signed a statement from the Cambridge Working Group saying that it is gain of function.
Well, it is not. And if you look at the grant and you look at the progress reports, it is not gain of function, despite the fact that people tweet that.
So
they
do
write
you still
about it.
support sending money to the Wuhan Virology Institute?
We do not send money now to the Wuhan
Do you
Virology
support
Institute.
sending money? We did, under your tutelage. We were sending it through EcoHealth. It was a sub-agency and a sub-grant. Do you support that the money from NIH that was going to the Wuhan Institute?
Let me explain to you why that was done. The SARS-CoV-1 originated in bats in China. It would have been irresponsible of us if we did not investigate the bat viruses and the serology to see who might have been infected.
Or perhaps it would be
in China.
irresponsible to send it to the Chinese government that we may not be able to trust with this knowledge and with this incredibly dangerous viruses. Government scientists like yourself who favor gain-of-function research.
I don't favor
maintain
gain-of-function research
that
in
the
China.
disease
You are
arose
saying
naturally.
things that are not correct.
Government defenders of gain-of-function, such as yourself, say that COVID-19 mutations were random and not designed by man. But interestingly, the technique that Dr. Barrick developed forces mutations by serial passage through cell culture that the mutations appear to be natural. In fact, Dr. Barrick named the technique the no-see-em technique because the mutations appear naturally. Nicholas Baker of the New York Magazine said nobody would know if the virus had been fabricated in a laboratory or grown in nature. Government authorities in the U.S., including yourself, unequivocally deny that COVID-19 could have escaped a lab. But even Dr. Shi in Wuhan wasn't so sure. According to Nicholas Baker, Dr. Shi wondered, could this new virus have come from her own laboratory? She checked her records frantically and found no matches. That really took a load off my mind, she said. I had not slept for days. The director of the gain-of-function research in Wuhan couldn't sleep because she was terrified that it might be in her lab. Dr. Barrick, an advocate of gain-of-function research, admits the main problem that the Institute of Virology has is the outbreak occurred in close proximity. What are the odds? Barrick responded, could you rule out a laboratory escape? The answer in this case is probably not. Will you, in front of this group, categorically say that the COVID-19 could not have occurred through serial passage in a laboratory?
I do not have any accounting of what the Chinese may have done, and I'm fully in favor of any further investigation of what went on in China. However, I will repeat again, the NIH and NIAID categorically has not funded gain-of-function research to be conducted in the Wuhan Institute of
You
Virology.
do support it in the U.S. We have 11 labs doing it, and you have allowed it here. We have a committee to do it, but the committee has granted every exemption. You're fooling with Mother Nature here. You're allowing superviruses to be created with a 15% mortality. It's very dangerous. I think it was a huge mistake to share this with China, and it's a huge mistake to allow this to continue in the United States. And we should be very careful to investigate where this virus came from.
I fully agree that you should investigate where the virus came from. But again, we have not funded gain-of-function research on this virus in the Wuhan Institute of Virology, no matter how many times
You're parsing
you say
words.
it,
There
it
was
didn't happen.
research. There was research done with Dr. Shi and Dr. Barrick. They have collaborated on gain-of-function research where they enhanced the SARS virus to infect human airway cells, and they did it by merging a new spike protein on it. That is gain-of-function. That was joint research between the Wuhan Institute and Dr. Barrick. You can't deny it.
Senator Paul, your time has expired. Dr. Fauci, I will let you respond to that when we need to move on.
Excuse me?
I will allow you to respond to that, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to say, I don't know how many times I can say it, Madam Chair. We did not fund gain-of-function research to be conducted in the Wuhan Institute of Virology.
Thank you.
So there you go, an interesting exchange there. Feel free to put your thoughts in the comments. Now, this comes, of course, at an interesting time. Many of you would be aware of this story right here. Chinese military scientists discussed weaponizing SARS coronavirus. So the original SARS coronavirus, of course, it was revealed that Chinese military personnel, scientists, were talking about how this particular coronavirus could be weaponized. And they said here that perhaps a third world war would be fought with biological weapons. So I think Rand Paul is on the money trying to get to the bottom of whether or not US funding was going towards this particular type of research in relation to making certain viruses able to jump from one species to another. Have a look at this down here. The document written by the People's Liberation Army scientists and senior Chinese public health officials in 2015 was obtained by the US State Department as it conducted an investigation into the origins of COVID-19. The paper describes SARS coronaviruses as heralding a, quote, new era of genetic weapons. I mean, this is coming straight from the mouth of the CCP. So I think we need to take it very seriously. And says they can be, quote, artificially manipulated into an emerging human disease virus, then weaponized and unleashed in a way never seen before. I mean, how much more do we need to read on here? The chairman of the British and Australian Foreign Affairs and Intelligence Committees, Tom Tugendhat and James Patterson, say the document raises major concerns about China's lack of transparency over the origins of COVID-19. Well, of course, we know that the World Health Organization only went to Wuhan to investigate a year later. And what did they come up with? Surprise, surprise, absolutely nothing. So I think that Rand Paul is on the money right there. I think that it's very telling, the conversation going back and forth with Dr. Anthony Fauci. It's certainly a fact that funding from the US government has made its way to the Wuhan lab. And whether or not the money was used for gain of function research, right, cannot be totally determined. But you have to think that they've been over in China in the Wuhan lab. They've been studying this these types of bioweapons. And of course, we saw the words there from the Chinese military. So it's really just a matter of putting one and one together and making a determination based on what we know, which is we know funding went to the Wuhan lab from America, and we know that Chinese military scientists discussed weaponizing SARS coronaviruses, and of course this particular type of research for modifying viruses has been ongoing in China for a long time. So it's all pretty straightforward. I don't think there's much left to the imagination. We need to do something. We need to do something very, very soon. Because what if the CCP was to unleash a truly deadly bioweapon virus to the world with a huge kill rate? We covered on the MCJ report the last time that supposedly they're working on particular types of viruses that are ethnic specific, that will only target certain people based on their ethnicity. So what is it that we could see next? I dare say it's a great risk. And we need to be bolstering our national security, and we need to stop selling our iron ore to China and feeding their industries and expansion. Anyway, that is the end of the You Can Say No section of the show. And let's keep moving along here. We're just about wrapped up. If you'd like to stay up to date, I invite you to follow me on Telegram, Morgan C. Jonas on Telegram. It is my preferred platform. I post all the articles on Telegram. Of course, you can sign up, mcjreport.com, put your email address in. I'll send you all the articles and resources we use on the show. But I also post them all here. So I don't post any articles on Facebook anymore. All on Telegram, at Morgan C. Jonas. Telegram is an essential tool to what we are doing at this stage. I've also started uploading podcasts. That's right. So the hosting is with Spreaker.com. I'm going to be uploading these podcasts on all the platforms like iTunes and Spotify and the other podcast apps. But in the meantime, you can head to Spreaker.com and search for MCJ Report, and you will see all the shows there. So you can listen to the MCJ Report while you're driving or while you're walking or doing anything else. The thing about the show is, of course, it's very verbal, right? So you don't necessarily need to watch the show. You can gain a complete understanding of what we're talking about by simply listening. Sometimes we play a few film clips, so that might be a bit annoying during the podcast. Maybe we can cut those out. But this is a new arm of MCJ Report and just another form of getting our message out there. All right, now this is my job, MCJ Report, running the show. Now, the show survives solely off your financial contributions. That's right. So we don't have any corporate sponsors or any money coming in from corporations or anything like that. It all comes down to you. So if you'd like to financially support the show, you can head on over to mcjreport.com/support. You can support from as little as $5. And I'm proud to be funded by the people for this show. It's a show funded by the people for the people. And it certainly is my pleasure to deliver this information to you. So once again, that's mcjreport.com/support. And if you do sign up, I will send you an invitation to a private Telegram group for MCJ members where we share ideas back and forth. I'm very active in the group and we also organize meetups and things like that. So once again, that's mcjreport.com/support. Now, of course, on top of that, we've launched our political party, which is rdaparty.com.au. So the time for talk is over. The time is to turn the talk into action and to commence the process of taking our country back. That's right. We have surpassed our 500 members, so we will be submitting our application to the Australian Electoral Commission, and it is going to be a group effort. We all need to roll our sleeves up and do our part. Okay, in saying that, becoming a member does not make you obligated to participating in volunteering or anything like that. Becoming a member of the party gives you voting rights, and it is a requirement of the AEC. In saying that, of course, if you'd like to volunteer as a member, that would be most appreciated. There's going to be many ways that you can help out, whether it's letterbox drops, whether it's attending voting booths, handing out how to vote cards and what have you. And every single bit helps. And it is up to us, ladies and gentlemen. We must beat them at their own game. These self-serving politicians have had it too good for too long. They have enacted policy that have served in their interests while simultaneously causing what I think many would describe as the deindustrialization of our country. So, ladies and gentlemen, reignite Democracy Australia. This is the name of the political party. That's rdaparty.com.au. Head on over. You can sign up. It's $40 a year. And let's get it done. Okie dokie. Alrighty, so we can do a bit of Q&A. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask me, and I'll get to a few questions. So Anna says it's now or never in the comments there. Anna, I agree with you. It's now or never. We must act now. There's Sophie there tuned in from YouTube. I see there are some of you on YouTube, so thank you for being here. There's Nikki, Daz. I see many people. Josephine. Erica says you're unable to get to Sydney. Okay, that's a shame, but hopefully next time. There's Norbert there. Thank you very much. That's right, Norbert. People do catch the replays. That is most definitely true. Sally, the policy schedule will be updated very soon on rdaparty.com.au. We had to act really quickly to ensure that we could get our application in order to meet the deadline for the federal election. So please stay tuned. We're working on it, and it is coming. David says, "How's the member count going?" It's great. It's surpassed 500. So I haven't looked for maybe an hour and a half, but I dare say it's going quite well. Daniel says, "Do I think the fighting between the IDF and Hamas will help or hinder Israel's mandatory vaccination program?" I'm not too sure. I guess it depends on the conflict and what exactly happens. I know that it's supposedly a requirement for the IDF to get vaccinated, but if there's pressing military issues, I'm sure that probably they'll get a waiver or something like that. That's just my assumption. Ben says, "Congratulations, thank you very much." Sally says, "Excellent." There's Sandra there posting a link to something. Julie says, "See you in Sydney. Awesome, can't wait." And there's Ahmed there saying, "Are we due for World War III?" Maybe we will be. You know what I mean? Beth says, "When are we coming to Perth?" I'm not sure at this moment, but I'll certainly keep you updated. Just having a read through. Josephine says, "Go to the protest." That's right. It's your God-given right, the right to free speech. The right to free speech without fear of violence. That's right. Violence from the government nor the police. Beth says, "You're obligated to brag about being a member." Beth, welcome aboard. We appreciate you. And I'm so happy to have you on the team. Thank you. Okay, I'm just reading through here. Sally says, are we going to be protected by the USA? Well, I don't have the answer to that question. We need to act as if we're not going to be protected by the USA. Is that fair enough? I say our military needs bolstering. We need a bigger military in terms of population and capability. Okay, the United States may not be there to help us forever, so we need to act as if they won't be. That's my firm belief. You know what they say, right? It's better to have the capability and not need it than to need the capability and not have it. Does that make sense? We'd rather have a big, powerful, strong military that never needs to be used than to find ourselves in a situation where we wished we had a big, strong military. And yeah, so that's what I have to say about that. There's Teresa there. Thank you for being here. There's Ahmed there. Thank you for being here as well. It's really great to see so many of you. I'm so happy that you tune into the MCJ Report. Of course, if you'd like to support the show, mcjreport.com/support. Be much appreciated. Paul says you wouldn't rely on the USA. Yeah, so I think the question is not whether or not we feel we can rely, but rather we want to be self-sustained. Is that fair enough? We want to be able to stand on our own 2 feet. I mean, we've given hundreds of millions of dollars to Indonesia for years. We know that, I think it was 2 years ago, after we gave our foreign aid, shortly after Indonesia spent a huge amount, I think it was something like $400 million on attack helicopters, and we were conducting joint training operations with Indonesian forces. Now they've teamed up with China because China's pumping money into Indonesia through the Belt and Road Initiative. China wants to use Indonesia as a factory for electronic vehicles and nickel and copper mining, etc. So, and why did we do this with Indonesia? You know, Indonesia has a history of subjugating other nations, the invasion of East Timor, the Papua conflict as well, where there's human rights abuses being carried out. Indonesia treats their own people like dirt, by the way. Have you seen what certain people are subjected to in Indonesia? Canings in the street. I've seen women punished in the street. Indonesia is a very authoritarian state. Maybe that's why they get along with the Chinese communist regime. Sandra says, trusting politics doesn't change you too much. Stick to your guns. I will stick to my guns. Thank you. Lyle says we need a powerful military defense system of our own. I couldn't agree more. And Daz says stop all foreign aid. Who here agrees with Daz? Do you think we should stop all foreign aid? I think foreign aid has its purpose somewhat for reasons of diplomacy and otherwise. I don't think we could stop all foreign aid. I think we do have some degree of responsibility for at least neighboring nations in our immediate region that we seek to maintain and expand diplomatic relations with. You see, part of the problem is if we were to completely stop foreign aid to surrounding nations, there's a reasonable likelihood that China will pour money into those nations via the Belt and Road Initiative and hijack those nations as Chinese Communist Party outposts. So there's always a cause and effect scenario when something is taken away. So it's a in-depth conversation that needs to be reviewed on a case-to-case basis. Does that make sense? Just reading down here. Thank you, Helen. Daz, absolutely. I mean, I have no doubt that a lot of the foreign aid that we give ends up in the hands of foreign corrupt politicians. Lyle says we've been training Indonesian officers in your hometown of Queenscliff. Yeah, geez, that's pretty grim. Peacemakers, that's right. Who here knows about the Peacemakers, Nick Patterson's group? I like Nick Patterson. I think he's a great guy. And I'm going to be doing a segment on the Australian Peacemakers on the MCJ Report really soon. I think it's great what he's doing. That's true, the pipeline was hacked, Catherine, and it is very concerning. Grant says, claim back all CCP-owned assets in our land. Well, you know what, Grant? I would argue that it was never the government's right to sell those assets in the first place. And if we look at the operations of the Chinese Communist Party, the subjugation of their own people, the illegal trade practices, one can make the argument that in many instances, the CCP acts more so as a transnational criminal organization. So in which case, was the acquisitions of various strategic assets legal, or were they not, given who the buyer was? Okay, this is a greater question that needs greater thought and consideration. Beth says you watched a video on the peacemakers today. That's right. I think they're doing a great job and they look very promising. All right. Okay. All right. Well, that just about wraps it up, guys. I'd like to thank everybody for tuning into the show. Now, I'm going to scrap the Friday show. No more show MCJ Report on Fridays, because I think that most people would probably rather be hanging out with friends, having a drink, spending time with the family on a Friday evening instead of the MCJ Report, which I don't take it personally. I understand, and you know what? I agree. I would rather be doing that too. So we're going to transition to Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday nights on the MCJ Report. Next week may just be Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. We have quite a lot of events, but that is the transition. So the MCJ Report 46 is going to air tomorrow night at 8 p.m. Now, it is an interview that I've already conducted. I've already conducted this interview with Dr. Mark Hobart, someone who I say is brave, somebody who I would refer to as an asset to our country. So I hope that you'll tune in, and I'll also be doing some broadcasts, and I'll see maybe some of you in Sydney. All right, good stuff, guys. Lots of love. Thank you for tuning in. Share the broadcast. I'll speak to you soon.